My name is Dana, and I'm the manager of the Telesales team, are an agency for Lincoln Heritage Life Insurance Company, and I'm here to tell you the truth about telesales. All right, there's a lot to unpack here. There is a lot that you need to know. There's some myths, there's some rumors, there's some truths, a lot to unpack so that you can figure out if telesales is the right fit for you. The first thing we have to talk about is leads. And I think the biggest misnomer is that you have to have the highest quality lead in order to be successful. And if we just take a step back for a second and talk about sales in general and talk about leads in general, there has never been a sales organization that I've ever been a part of where the leads were literally sitting by their phone waiting for someone to call them so they can say, "Oh, salesperson, I was waiting for you to call me. Let's talk about that inquiry that I made so that you can sell me something and I can pay you for it." Like, think about that logically. That is not the reality. And I think what most sales agents think is that just because somebody inquired or submitted their information or filled out a postcard or whatever the case may be, you are interrupting somebody's day. Period. You don't have an appointment with them. And even if you do have an appointment with them, I mean, they may not even show up. They may come up with an excuse, right? That all of a sudden they're busy and they're not available to meet anymore. People don't want to be sold. People do not want their day interrupted. So there really is no such thing as like a super high quality lead versus a super low quality lead. What you really need to focus on is lead volume, especially for telesales. I mean, I remember at one point, our team did a test for generating leads through television infomercial. And people were literally watching an infomercial on how important it is to have final expense insurance. They were listening to families share testimonials about how glad they were that their family members had it, about how important it is. They don't want to be a burden on their loved ones, that it's affordable, that they're living on a fixed income. And they were so surprised that even with all of that, that they were able to pay for it. Like, it basically sold itself. And all someone had to do was pick up the phone and call us, and we would field those calls. And yes, those leads were not cheap, but logically, you would think that is probably the best quality lead that you can get. Honestly, it wasn't. And the reason why it wasn't is because we can't control whether or not someone has a bank account, right? We can't control whether or not someone calls and says, "Just send me information. I don't want to talk to someone," right? We can't do anything about someone that said, "I just want you to give me a quote. I just want to see what this is all about." Like, when it all comes down to it, once you peel off the layers of the lead, the quality of the lead and how it was generated, everybody is saying the same thing anyway. What we ended up finding from spending a ton of money on generating live phone call leads is that the quality of that lead was no different. It really wasn't any better than an aged lead that was 1, 2, or 3 months old, where someone had already marked them as not interested. The objections were the same. The conversations were the same. But instead of paying $60 to $100 for someone to call into us, we were paying pennies on the dollar for 10 times, 100 times the amount of leads that we could get for the same spend. So to summarize this section, having a high volume of leads is the single most important thing to your success. You have to have people to talk to. You have to have people to call, and you can't run out. You can't run out of people to talk to. There has to be a constant, steady stream of pipeline, whether that's outbound, whether that's inbound, it doesn't matter what it is. It has to be consistent, and it cannot go away. When I used to sell leads to real estate agents and real estate brokers in another lifetime, the majority of the real estate agents that would buy leads from us would buy the smallest amount. they would buy, less than 100 leads for the year, which sounds crazy, being in life insurance, but for real estate is a little bit different. And I'll tell you that the majority of the real estate agents that would buy the smallest amount of leads were the ones that would fail. Time and time again, they would fail because they weren't setting themselves up for success from the start. And so that gets tricky, right? You have to have the budget to be able to buy the volume of leads that it requires to support somebody's success. So when people are saying, you have to buy leads, you have to have leads, that is true, right? That is 1,000,000% true. But not everybody is in the position to be able to afford it, to invest in themselves. Like, not everyone can just put money on their credit cards. And so you can align yourselves with a company like us that does have the budget for that, that can put you in front of an unlimited amount of people to talk to. Because if you don't have that, you're setting yourself up for failure from the start. All right. So that's that part about leads. Let's move on to secret number 2, which is consistency. Now, being consistent in any sales is important, but it's very, very important with telesales. You have to be consistent in 4 aspects. You have to be consistent in your time, right? You have to treat your 1099 position as a job. You have to commit to yourself that you're going to show up every single day at a certain time, and you are not going to leave until the end of the day at that certain time. Whether that's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., whether that's 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., whatever that is for you, you have to stick to that schedule, and you have to be consistent. Number 2 is presentation. You have to be consistent in your presentation, in the way that you present to people. If you're trying something different every single time, you're never going to know what works, right? It could have been someone that was just ready to buy, and now you are mistakenly thinking that the way that you presented to that person is going to work for everybody else. And the reality is that's not true. So you have to get a really good presentation that you're comfortable with, that someone who is been successful before you has written and used, so that you can take that blueprint and use it moving forward. And it's not going to be perfect day one, right? Nothing is perfect, but the more consistent you are at using it, the more comfortable you are at using it, the better you will be. And then hopefully you have somebody that is going to be helping you identify where you're missing steps in your sales process, so that you can be even more successful. So you got to stay consistent in your sales process. You also have to be consistent in your effort. And what I mean by that is the energy that you give at 8 o'clock in the morning has to be the same energy that you give at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you may have been beaten up all day long. And so when you make those calls and someone answers the phone and they can tell, right, it's the end of your day, you're done. You already have prejudged this lead. You already think they're going to tell you they're not interested and tell you to pound sand, but they're actually, pausing and hearing what you have to say. And then because you're not prepared, because you're mentally exhausted and you're already prejudging how this conversation is going to go, you blow it. You have to be consistent with your energy and your intent on every single call. You have to treat your last call of the day the same way you treat your first call of the day. And finally, you need to be consistent in your approach. And in your approach is very similar to your presentation, but in your approach, meaning your introduction, meaning how you handle false objections in the first 10 seconds, you have to be so comfortable there, meaning that no matter what false objection someone gives you, whether it's I'm busy, I didn't inquire, I'm not interested anymore, I already bought insurance, whatever that objection is that someone gives you, because again, you are interrupting their day. You have to just be able to expect that somebody is going to give you a wall and you need to bulldoze your way through that. If you pause, if you hesitate, if you don't know what to say, if you're just expecting, again, someone to be waiting by their phone, like, oh, thank you, I've been waiting hours for you to call me, then you're going to fail. That is setting yourself up for failure. So we've talked about leads. We've talked about being consistent in multiple aspects of your sales process. Number 3, your talk track. You have to master your talk track. You have to master your presentation. If you don't have one, get one. If you don't know how to create one, find one that's been created and already mastered for you, and imitate that until you can make it your own. On this team, we have everything already laid out for you. We have a proven process, a proven presentation, and then we continue to improve on that. We listen to your calls. We listen to where you might be skipping steps, where you might have not recognized that you created objections in this spot and how you needed to overcome that here, right? So you have to perfect with your talk track, because it's going to do you no good to now spend $2,000 a week on leads so you have thousands of people to talk to and blow through them when you finally get someone on the phone. Now, let's talk about the first 10 minutes of your presentation. The first 10 minutes of your presentation is your discovery phase, right? You are trying to learn, you're trying to understand where somebody is coming from so you can know how to help them. And if you don't understand why they are in the position that they're in, how it's affecting them, what does it look like if they don't do anything to change their situation, how could you possibly know how to sell them at the end? So don't be a me monster. What does that mean? If in the first 1 to 2 minutes, you're asking 1, 2, 3 questions and you go right in to talking about who you are and what we do, and let me tell you how great we are and how many companies I'm contracted with and how I'll be able to price shop for you, and I'm so amazing and this is the best company, and you're done. You absolutely cannot be a me monster. How could you possibly understand what somebody is really looking for if you haven't taken the time to ask them enough questions? The selling takes place in the first 10 minutes. After that, it's just why should they choose to go with you versus somebody else? But if they haven't already committed that they're going to be buying, why it's important to them, how it's affecting them, who it's going to go to, what do they need this insurance for, what does it look like if they don't have anything at all, do they have a plan B, right? What is their experience with insurance in the past? What are their expectations? If you don't know any of that, you're dead in the water before you start. And that is a huge mistake. You can't spend $500, $1,000, $2,000 a week on leads and not know what you're doing. Sure, if you have that many leads, you're going to get laydowns. It's going to happen, right? But let me tell you something, laydowns are the worst leads. You might think it's weird that I'm saying that. Why would I think a laydown is the worst lead to get? Because if someone is a laydown with you, then who else might they be a laydown with? That's right. The next person that calls them in a week from now, or 2 weeks from now, or 4 weeks from now, and they'll be very easy to be allowed or persuaded to cancel your policy and go with someone else, because whether or not someone's a laydown, if you don't take the time to go through the entire sales process with them, go through the journey, get to those emotions, they will not remember you. They won't care about you. They care about themselves. And so if someone else is going to call them and tell them that what they signed up for isn't going to work for them, and you didn't do anything to really solidify that for them, now you have a cancellation. I hate laydowns. I will still take the journey with every single person, even referrals. Remember, people generally want what they can't have or what they think they can't have. So if your approach is more into, well, I'm not sure actually if what I have or what I offer is even a good fit for you, I should probably ask you some questions so I can figure out what's important to you. And then we can figure out together what makes the most sense. And if it's not with me, that's okay. Or that way I can at least give you the information that's relevant to what you need. So when you are ready to make that decision, you make the right one, right? Saying things like that removes the sales pressure and will make people feel much more comfortable with you. And they will be much more likely to open up to you and be more open to hearing what you have to say. Okay, so we've talked about leads. We've talked about being consistent. We've talked about being able to have the right talk track and the right approach. We've talked about, having a presentation that's going to take you from A to Z. We've talked about not being a me monster. We've talked about asking the right questions to make sure that what we do is even a good fit for someone. You also have to remove any and all expectations that this call is going to end up in a sale. You need to go into the calls in order to seek to understand. That's called active listening. When you listen to understand, as opposed to listening to respond, you'll actually find that those pauses when it's your turn to speak, instead of responding to ask the next question on your presentation, you might actually realize that you have to ask clarifying questions about the answers that you were just given, which is very different from just going down your list of questions so you can get through them. So that's pretty much it. That is the secret to telesales. You have to put all of that together and make sure that you have a system in place that maximizes your ability to call as many leads in the fastest amount of time and knows when to call them again, right? Because as you're getting a huge volume of leads every single day, you need to make sure that those leads that you got yesterday and 2 days ago and last week and last month don't fall through the cracks. So here at Tailored Legacy, everything that I've talked about is all figured out and wrapped up in a box in a pretty bow. And we are here ready to bring you in and show you how to do it and how to do it right. I have people come to me all the time that say they actually make more money on a lower contract because they aren't spinning their wheels, spending all this money and not converting any business. And if that's you, send me a message. Let's have a conversation and let's see if what we do is a good fit for you.